Hey, welcome and good morning to all the attendees joining in from um, for the webinar. For all who are on the East Coast, good afternoon. It's been a lovely day, and I'm glad to bring this webinar to you. In today's session, we're going to talk about um, what TestingWhiz 5.0 has um, launched with, what all new features are there, how it can be used in your testing activities, and what all uh, more uses you can. Moving on, the agenda for today would be, we will be for all people who are already aware about TestingWhiz, we will talk about um, brief introduction. For all people who are already aware about TestingWhiz, we will be just rehashing some of the things for all the new attendees. Then talking about uh, different features, starting off from cloud execution, what does it mean, how it works, what all benefits do you have in your system, and how to implement it in your testing strategy. Then we will be talking about test data generation. Test data management has been a big challenge for enterprises. Even Gartner predicts for test data management to be a big challenge. TestingWhiz understands the testers' need, and that is why we have included this into uh, into our feature sets. The whole idea for launching this feature was to allow
Muted.
um, testers to make use of intelligent test data generation, make sure that what type of test data do they test against, and eventually test more effectively on their applications. Then we were talking about headless testing. Headless testing more or less is executing your web applications without having to open up the browsers or having to be dependent on browsers. The headless testing allows to speed up the testing processes or run the process in the background. Finally, we'll touch base on the analytics and the BI, and then some of the other features that we have covered. So I'll just step back to the previous slide and give a quick introduction about TestingWhiz. So TestingWhiz has been in business since a few years now. We pride ourselves upon being leading or Generation 5 test automation solution available in the market. We work with customers across the world from various industries, various segments, and allow them to test better, test faster, and save costs while doing all this. TestingWhiz has a unique approach to testing. We not only test the front end, we also work and test the back end of the application. So in a nutshell, TestingWhiz allows you to test your web application front end, the web services, the database, and even some of the mobile sites. So it's a complete end-to-end 360-degree solution, and given an implementation chance, you can implement it across the enterprise-wide. Just a sound check. Are you guys able to hear us? Okay, we will be taking up some questions towards the end of the session. I have reserved about 10 minutes for all of you attendees to bring up your questions. All right. Moving on. Yeah, just checking back. For all questions, please use raise a hand or type in your questions. We cannot, for the since we've got a lot of people on board, we cannot allow each one of you to come on board and speak because of the audio connections, etc. So please type in your questions. Moving on to the next slide. So let's talk about regression testing and all the sorts of challenges that you receive. Okay, is this better now? We have a feedback from one of the attendees that has asked that she's having trouble listening to us now. Okay, is it clear now? All right, thank you. Okay, so I'll try to come closer to the mic and try to speak a little louder. Moving on to the new challenges in the regression automation. So we realize that enterprises today have different types of challenges, and the biggest one is the inability to test at the pace of what they develop their applications with. Now, undergo with the new trends like Agile and DevOps and all these fancy new testing methodologies, you always find yourself in a time crunch where you have less and less time to execute more and more of your testing cases or your testing requirements. In addition to that, applications becoming more and more diverse. There are new forms and new ways where you need to have your application work with. Let's take an example. An e-commerce store today has to work not just on a website, but also on a mobile phone, iPads, iPhones, varying different types of resolution, which increases a lot of challenge for the teams to make sure that they test whatever is developed within the sprint cycles. Generating and maintaining and how to test. Most of the times when you give something to a tester, they would end up testing it against a standard set of test data. So for an example, if you're testing a form, you would have a tester looking into some standard ABC at xyz.com, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, etc. This is the standard contact form that you test with. Organizations now realize that test data, what you test it against and the test data that you use in your application needs to change. And that's why we see that there are new subject matter experts coming in. I'm sorry, we're getting some responses from some of the attendees who are unable to hear this. So I'll try to speak again and try to be a little loud again. So we see a lot of subject matter experts trying to come in and talk about what your application needs to be tested against, or setting up standards on different types of test data that you use while you actually run tests. That includes different scenarios, positive scenarios, negative scenarios, etc. And different types of combinations, making sure your application is robust when tested against real-world scenarios. It's also difficult when you do all this is to track the prices or track areas where you test against. If there would be a centralized dashboard where you could see all your regression cycles or your trends, etc., then it would just become more and more intuitive and more meaningful for all that testing that you do. Moreover, ensuring that your applications work during your continuous integration and continuous delivery has become important. With all the CI, CD, and DevOps, businesses expect that when they invest into automation, it should work seamless. As soon as something is built, it needs to be tested, delivered, and all the defects needs to be logged. And they need to know everything about the application, everything about the application's quality, and they need to know that now. Moving on to the today's agenda on let's say, moving on to the features that we would like to send. So how you wish to solve these challenges, and I think, testing this with TestingWhiz 5.0, the Jupyter release, we are trying to address that. So what we do differently is we pull features out of the box inside our automation solution that allows you to improvise effectiveness. And I will talk about each feature specifically, starting with the cloud execution. So what's new with TestingWhiz is the integration with cloud platforms like BrowserStack and Sauce Labs. Now, people who are familiar with BrowserStack and Sauce Labs, I don't need to rehash, but all of you who are not aware or haven't heard of, or have heard of them, but haven't had a chance to really understand what they can do for you. These are third-party systems that TestingWhiz integrates with. The purpose for these platforms is to allow you to test your applications against different environments. So depending upon who you use, they offer different browser and OS combinations. For an example, testing an application on browser version IE 10 on a Windows XP computer, or testing IE 11 on a Windows 10 computer. They also offer different processing combinations and a whole lot of permutations and combinations that you can use. I think we have already touched a base about different features, so I'll just move on and start talking about each one of them in detail. Sorry, my slide seems to be just stuck here. I need to move on to the next one. Just a minute. Hey guys, can yeah, okay. So I spoke about the cloud execution, the application, what the features and how it is supposed to work and all about that. So I'll just go back to the, sorry, I'm having, okay. So it's often observed that when you build something, you need to have a testing matrix against different environments and different systems that you would want to test it with. We reasonably understand that it's impossible for your own internal IT teams to provide a test environment or a test lab, which is resource intensive, high cost of software buying and investing into software licenses, or talking specifically around different kinds of combinations that you need to maintain. Okay, we're getting a lot of feedback from people which are unable to hear us. I'm just going to check with one of my colleagues if they can hear us okay. Okay, I'm just going to move on because of time here and uh, try to be as loud as I can. Um, talking about, coming back to the cloud execution. So we realize that a lot of time your IT team is unable to have a constant go at maintaining different systems. And browser stack and source labs are an independent players, and we do not endorse them, but we do integrate with them where they have realized this gap in the market and has allowed to build and offer a solution which a user can subscribe. It's a pay-as-you-go model where you can log in and create an account and get a wide variety of uh, different OS and browser combinations across the board, which you can test it. For an example, you will have Microsoft IE versus Firefox, Chrome, as well as iPads and iPhones environments which you can test against. Moving on to the test data generation. So what is test data generation? What does it include? So TestingWhiz allows users to create their own data set. An example can be you need to test an application against different OS and different browser versions. And you also need to test it with against different data sets. Now what we do with TestingWhiz is imagine you have a contact form that you need to test, or a checkout page, or a payment page, or a payment authentication page that you need to test against. You would really need at least 5 to 10 different combinations of names, emails, contact phones, company name, as well as credit card information. In a perfect scenario, TestingWhiz allows you to generate this test data on its own instead of you having to TestingWhiz allows you to generate test data and use it into your application. The time this saves for your testing teams to write and create different data combinations is humongous. On an average, if you are testing with 5 different types of contact fields and you're testing it for 10 different types of scenarios, then you can avoid the time required to type in or import your test data from an Excel sheet to the testing tool and then use it in your automation cycles. Instead, TestingWhiz allows you to generate this test data, and in subsequent slides or the demo part, we will be showing you how this exactly works. Headless testing is a way for users to test the application functionality without having to be dependent on browser. So this is faster, more effective, and less time consuming for a user to test the applications. With version 5.0, we have also included some of the features like customizing your own profile or storing results into a database for further analysis. We will be moving on to the live demo session where I will just need to hand over the screen to my colleague and let them start the demonstration.
Hello guys, I'm Anish here. I'm just taking you to the TestingWhiz tool. So here I have a test data script, which you can see here, which is a TestingWhiz download page, where I would be showing you all the features which we had in this testing 5.0 Jupyter. So first, to tell you, as we saw in the presentation, first I would explain you about the cloud execution, where first you have to do the settings in TestingWhiz. So for cloud execution, you can see in configuration we have a tab, cloud execution, in which browser stack and source lab you can configure. So first you have to add a new account into it. So you can put in your credentials here and validate it. For example, you can see there is one of our account added already. So you will get a key number from the browser stack and source lab, so you can put it in here and validate it. Once that is done, you can go into the configuration of browser stack, where you can add the requirement according to your needs, like the particular profile. You could see it here, then in which platform you want to run it. So you can select it from here, maybe in Windows 7 OS version, browser, maybe in Chrome, and the browser version is around 40. So like this, you can create n number of credentials with your platform, and you can test it easily. So I'm just putting in alias. Okay, and I'm clicking on apply and OK. So now here in execution, I would be able to see in browser stack the account which is Windows 7 Chrome 40. So now I can execute on this particular platform. So this is our active screen, which you can see. Maybe for cloud execution, it would show the active screen also, which you can have a settings. You can go into settings and configure those particular screen. So now here you can see the console log when it is going to that particular page and inputting all the values, right? So this is happening on the cloud environment. So here you can see it has come up to the last section. So here it has showed some error which says that could not click on the wait submit button page. So now, as per the new report system, you can see here, this is the new version of testing 5.0, wherein you would be able to see the whole log as well as the steps in the new format. Also, you would be able to see the different filters here, like pass or how much is failed. If you have maybe 10 test cases running in, maybe one has passed, 4 has failed, and others have not run. So it would be under this section. So that's how you can easily create any cloud environment and test it with TestingWhiz 2. Now the second, going into where we have to generate test data. So we have a shortcut available here itself from generate test data. By clicking on this, you would be able to see this dialog box, right? Similarly, you have a tab here also, data table, and I'm just deleting this one so that I can give you a clear idea. So in the data table, if I right click and add, the same data, the same dialog box would appear. Okay. So here maybe I want to test with different users, maybe a combination of 50, and I'm adding up the field. So maybe a name, so in the name I want to put in alphabetical, email, so the email format, and maybe the third one can be a credit card. So I can choose according to that. MX.
So we allow different types of combinations where you can use an alphabetical, an email, or a combination of alpha and numerical, or different types of data combination. You can also configure from the configuration if you would like your own test data format to be added. We will, if you have questions about test data, you could reach out to us on an individual basis and we can help you out how you can configure your own test data set. So Anish has just created 50 records, and as you can see,
So now what I would do is I would match up the test data. So for that, first I need to loop it. So I would add in the loop command from here, just a drag and drop. So you can see loop start, and I would choose that particular target data table, that is users. So if you want to have a standard loop which goes from 1 to 50 combinations, can do. Or else if you want to have a custom loop, that's also possible, wherein you can start from maybe the fourth section to, let's suppose it's 14 or 15. I can save that. And then where I want to end that particular loop. So maybe that's around in the third one. Okay. And the next step is to match it, that is name with a name. Maybe I'm changing it here email, and for the time being I'm mapping it with a contact number so that we can see those particular numbers itself. So now what I would do is I would execute in one of the browsers so that we can see how the changes are being done. Maybe in Google Chrome. So now you can see the instance of Google Chrome has been there. So now what happens is that you can see the 10 datas would be inputted in that same page. I have not kept the submit button before, that's why it would just show the different datas. I hope everyone are following it.
great. So this is how exactly you could use test data, where you have a combination of forms and combination of different types of names, emails, contact numbers, credit card details, etc., which TestingWhiz can generate for you and allow you to work with. We will let this thing to go through, and yep, this ends.
So now,
And on the reports, you will be able to see the screenshots, the
Yeah, you can see that
different
it
times.
So these are the execution logs which you can see. Each data has been typed in here. So whatever data table you have, all those would be possible to be seen here. Okay.
Right. Can we move on to the next one?
Yeah. So moving on to next one is headless testing, wherein we can see how faster the execution works. So I'm just opening a new data script. So now here you can see this is a particular script, the same script, and I'm just executing it into headless execution. In this also, if we have
So
put
what headless execution? Sorry. So what headless execution means is you are allowed to test the application without having to open up a browser itself. So it uses the application functional aspects. We use Phantom.js for all the people who are aware about the Phantom JavaScript framework. We use that to run our execution tests against um, a background wherein you do not need to have a browser or anything open up. Imagine if this test takes about uh, 28 seconds to execute, and you have similarly, if you run this against browser, then your memory consumed from your devices is going to multiply if you have 3 browsers. Instead, this allows you to test the applications faster, where you have multiple sets of test cases, test suites. This can work out to be a pretty efficient way for you to test.
okay, moving on to the next, which is saving the reports into Mongo database. So here you can see in the settings configuration we have a report repository wherein you can put up the credentials of Mongo database and just check the store results in MongoDB instance, so that whenever we are executing those data, the reports would be saved into Mongo database. So you can now test the connection and go for an OK. And I would just execute it again so that we have a data, the reports, which can be saved into the Mongo database server. So this time,
Thank you, Anish. So we decided to ensure that, for whatever existing reports and capabilities that testing is allowed, if some of the users would like to extend it or implement an approach where they would want to store and archive all their execution results and have built their own custom BI dashboard, we have extended an integration that allows you to store your reports into an open source solution like and then finally have your uh, execution logs available to you in different formats. Now, what we were looking at here was a JSON response, but if you scroll up on the page, you will be able to see all different types previous execution results um, against different environments, different times, how much time it has taken, what is the overall execution summary, how many iterations have you done, etc., etc. We'll just scroll up so you can see how many tests were run, how many have passed, failed. And this becomes your own little analytic dashboard, which you can then run it against. Um, Moving on to the Firefox profile. So a lot of times we realize that you want to test an application against different um, personalized settings. Now, it might be that you have already stored your information within that application, or you would want to create a different profile of user to test the application behavior. Now, one of the browsers, Firefox, allows you to do this, and then you can set up different custom user profiles. And TestingWhiz has extended integration with this, allowing users to create and set up their own profile. The benefits this allows us to have added security on your test cases, and also configure different add-ons, etc., on the fly that you can test your application against. So we'll run an execution test now, where I would select the profile and execute my tests. So what it does is it also loads all of my add-ons, all of my personalized settings, and then tests the application against a custom configuration or a custom browser configuration. And
So now here in the reports you can see that it's on Mozilla Firefox and the profile which we had created, TestingWhiz. So these were the new features which we had in TestingWhiz 5.0 Jupyter.
we can stop for questions and take any questions that you guys might have for the next 5 minutes. Please please type in your questions or send us your questions on an email, or you can raise your hand and we can allow you to raise your questions. Okay, so I believe there are questions from any of the attendees. If you have any questions that you would like to send to us, please write to us on info@testingwhiz.com. Once again, there will be a recorded session available for all the attendees to download from our blog or our webpage. Do check again. We would also shortly email you once the recordings are prepared, and along with survey questions. Please do pick up the survey question and send in your feedback. I apologize for all the challenges with the audio today. I am trying to attend the webinar out of the office, but I think we would either do a follow-up session to this or put up a recording with improved audios or a re-recorded session from the office as soon as we get a chance. Thanks again, and you have a great week. Bye.